Someone I want to see.
My friend Sherlock Holmes.
221B Baker Street.
Hello there. Welcome to my review of The Return of Sherlock Holmes, The Sign of 4. This was the first of the feature-length episodes of the ITV Sherlock Holmes series and Arthur Conan Doyle's second Holmes novel. It begins much like a regular episode with a prologue. On a dark night, a peg-legged stranger approaches a Gothic mansion with a strange companion in tow. The companion knocks out a man keeping watch over a dead body lying in state, and the one-legged man leaves a cryptic note, the sign of 4. We then cut to the familiar site of Baker Street, where Watson observes a pretty young woman getting out of a cab, and Holmes admonishes Watson for making his latest story of their adventures a little too adventurous.
Incidentally, I have glanced over your latest account of my work.
Oh, yes.
Honestly, I cannot congratulate you upon it.
The woman is visiting Holmes, although she has no appointment, and, with Watson thoroughly smitten, she tells Holmes her tale.
I can hardly imagine anything more strange, more utterly inexplicable than the situation in which I find myself.
This whole scene is carried by the three actors here, with Jenny Seagrove as the young woman, Mary Morstan, doing most of the heavy lifting. It's unusual to not have any flashbacks in one of these openings, and really relies on the acting ability of everyone involved to keep it entertaining. Thankfully, they are all up to the task, with Brett playing Holmes at his most unlikable at first, annoyed with Watson, and with little time for what seems like a boring case. However, as the story goes on, he becomes more and more interested, that there might be something in it for him, and we see a change come about him. Meanwhile, Hardwicke plays Watson at his most love-struck. We've seen his eye for the ladies before, but here he hangs on Mary's every word. And the reason for this is in the original stories, Mary and Watson would go on to fall in love and marry. But as this Watson is much older, and there was no plan to change the dynamic of the series to accommodate Mary, their love remains unrequited, but with both Hardwicke and Seagrove playing the mutual attraction while underplaying the romance. I think it works really well to do it in this way, as it remains true to the spirit of the stories while not necessarily sticking to the plot. Mary explains she's there because 10 years earlier her father, while on leave from the army, disappeared when he was supposed to meet her. 4 years later she started receiving pearls, one a year ever since, and she doesn't know where they come from or why. She had received a letter that morning asking to meet her that evening to find out why she has been wronged and why she's receiving the pearls, and she may bring 2 friends if she's concerned, but not the police. This really intrigues Sherlock, and he and Watson agree to accompany her. After Mary has left, we get a lovely character moment between Watson and Holmes, where we get a little insight into why Holmes doesn't allow himself to be swayed by the attractiveness of women.
The most winning woman I ever knew was hanged for poisoning 3 little children for their insurance money.
Indicating that he does acknowledge Mary's looks, but judges people on their character rather than their appearance. After some thorough research, Holmes discovers Mary's father's only friend in London when he disappeared, Major Sholto, died 4 years after his disappearance, the same time she began receiving the pearls, and so is convinced Sholto's heirs are responsible for the pearls. That evening, on the way to their meeting, Mary shows Sherlock a map that was discovered amongst her father's things that makes mention of the sign of 4 and includes 4 names. He is now thoroughly invested in this mystery. At the rendezvous, they are escorted to the house of one of the Sholto heirs, the eccentric son of Major Sholto, Thaddeus, who tells them they must then all visit his twin brother Bartholomew, but not before he has further detailed who his father was. His father had made his fortune in India, but came back quite paranoid, employing 2 former boxers as bodyguards, and forever fearful of men with wooden legs. Upon receiving a letter, his health declined, and Mary's father did visit him on the night he disappeared, dying of a heart attack in Major Sholto's company, his servants disposing of the body. On Sholto's deathbed, he instructed his sons to ensure Mary got her fair share of the treasure he and Morstan had found in India and hidden, but died before revealing the location of this additional fortune. After 6 long years, they have discovered the treasure, and he wants her to have her share. As they arrive at Bartholomew's, they discover that he has been murdered by poisoned blow dart, and another sign of foreknote has been left behind. The image of the dead Sholto brother is quite unnerving as he sits frozen for the entirety of Holmes's investigation of the murder scene. Holmes sends Watson to take Mary home and collect Toby to assist him on the case, just as Inspector Athelney Jones arrives. Jones is a more agreeable inspector than Lestrade, but sadly equally as bright, and arrests Thaddeus. Meanwhile, Watson meets Toby, who turns out to be a dog. He returns to Holmes to find him scaling the roof of the Sholto estate, meeting Watson in inimitable Holmes fashion. Toby tracks the scent of the men who killed Bartholomew to the Thames, where it seems they escaped by boat. Holmes then engages the help of the Baker Street irregulars to find the boat. It's nice to see 2 Sherlock staples introduced in this extra long episode. They bring just a bit more variety to it that helps to break up a fairly straightforward plot. Thanks to the Baker Street irregulars' thorough search efforts, they eventually find the boat in question and relate the information to a now disguised Holmes, who then has a bit of fun with Watson and Jones before relaying what he has discovered.
But if you have any information, you may give it to me.
There's a reward.
Is that about the steam launch Aurora?
They then take to the river. What's incredible about this episode is just how much location filming they are able to do in London. With some careful camera setups, it doesn't give away the 100 years that have passed since the story was first published. And I don't think that it would be as possible to do this today, with the significant changes to London that have taken place since the 1980s. But even then it was an impressive feat to disguise the later buildings without it feeling like they're cheating anything. While on the river, a boat chase ensues when they locate the vessel they've been looking for. And before long, the face of Jonathan Small, played by John Thor, the peg-leg man mentioned on Mary's map, is revealed, along with his companion, a pygmy native of the Andaman Islands, Tonga. Tonga takes aim with the blow dart he used to kill Bartholomew, but Watson shoots him first, condemning him to a watery grave. Small makes it to the mud banks of the Thames, but gets stuck before he can escape. When they pick him up, he is shocked to discover exactly how much Holmes knows. They then all return to Baker Street for the denouement. Small is finally able to fill in the gaps and tell his side of the story. He was also a soldier in India, who lost his leg to a crocodile and was discharged, but stayed in India. During the mutiny, he returned to the British Army for protection and was given guard duty with 3 Sikhs, who approached him with a proposition to take a share of the treasure they knew of, which resulted in the murder of the man caring for the treasure. The murder was discovered, and the 4 men were sent to a penal colony guarded by Major Sholto and Mary's father. With gambling debts accrued, Small approached the 2 men with his own proposition to share the treasure with them if they helped Small and his companions escape. Sholto betrayed them all, leading to Marston returning to England to confront him. With Marston dead, Small vowed revenge on Sholto, and taking up with Tonga after saving his life, they escaped, slowly making their way to London, where our story began. With his story at an end, they break open the treasure, only to discover Small tossed it overboard while on the Thames. If he and his confederates couldn't have it, then no one can. Mary is somewhat relieved that the cursed treasure is gone, and Jones takes Small away. There is a touching goodbye from Mary to Watson.
I'm so very grateful to you both.
And Holmes takes his rest.
What a very attractive woman.
Was she? I hadn't noticed.
The production quality in this episode is excellent, as you would expect from the series by now, with the extra budget all up on screen. The extended runtime never makes the story feel slow, and the pace of the adventure continues accelerating until Small is captured. The extra time also allows for a few more character moments, as we see Holmes investigating, getting frustrated by his lack of progress, and simply just using his brain, which we've always got brief glimpses of in the shorter episodes, but have more time to take this in. As I mentioned, the main plot is pretty straightforward, the tracking down of Bartholomew's murderer, but it's all the other details that make it an exciting watch. The motives of everyone involved, the theatrics of the hunt, and the eccentric characters. It's not perfect. I would have preferred it if the other 3 of the 4 in the Sign of 4 had been more present in the story, as they are really an afterthought and don't feel particularly fleshed out. But I think that's a fault of the original story, as they are consigned to the prison colony, where they might have been folded into the story more. There's also the inherent racism of the Tonga character as the pygmy savage, which is inescapable, but I think the film does well in reducing most of the obviously problematic elements of this type of character. It also doesn't entirely make sense for Small to leave his little notes behind, as no one has any idea what this refers to other than the 2 men who are dead at the start of the story, but that is a minor issue. I think there are a few structural things they could have done to make it work better and feel a little different to a normal episode, but it's still very well made, with excellent performances throughout. So for me, this is easily a 4 out of 5. Thank you. Goodbye.